So the whole purpose of today's briefing is really to help you to understand what it means to have a SOC and how you can incorporate that as part of your MSP offering, but also some of the pros and cons, some of the dangers and some of the areas, issues that come up and how you can actually get around that. So I've been working in IT now for well over 20 years. I've worked in various organizations. So I spent 11 years working for Merlin Entertainment, which are the second largest theme park operator in the world. In that role, I looked after our data centers and security from the UK, US, and Asia. I then spent 10 years working for MSPs and running MSPs MSP offering, and was technical director in a couple of those roles. And I now work for an organization that does a lot of government contracts. So we are very secure in what we do. In fact, because we work for the UK Army and some US military contracts, it means that our infrastructure has to be secure because of the data that we handle, etc. So I've got about 5 years experience working in cybersecurity and have helped a lot of companies to set up their SOC, etc. So have had the battle scars and war wounds to go with it. I am still a bit technical, so I get my hands dirty every now and again, but I tend to manage teams and let them look after their affairs so they can grow into that. Okay, so let's take a look at why cybersecurity is important or should be important to you as an MSP. So attacks are complex, global, and changing constantly. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, the days of old where some kid used to be sitting on his computer at home and was playing and attacking companies, well, those days are gone now. It tends to be now far more complex, organized gangs who are looking to take money away from companies, your customers, and hold their data to ransom. The main players are disruptors. So a disruptor is somebody who wants to make a name for themselves. Perhaps they are a hacker in a community, and so they can have bragging rights that they took down X company. We don't see so much of those these days, but that used to be the main type of person who attacked businesses. More so what we see is criminals looking to gain financially. So by sending out crypto lockers to encrypt data, that's what we see the most predominant type of attack. Of course, there's still the government influences, North Korea, Iran, governments like that who are under sanctions. They often use hacks to take money from companies by sending out ransomware. But the biggest issue that you have to face as an MSP is from the customers' end users. Why? Because end users are the Achilles heel to any security portfolio that you're offering. If they are not educated, they will be the point of entry for an attack. And as an MSP, you end up picking up the pieces, because if you are not offering a SOC offering, it means that your T's and C's, your contracts, will probably incorporate any kind of support for security breaches. And of course, when you do have a security breach, it can take days for you to recover that data. And that's lost revenue for you, because your teams are spending time trying to recover the customer's site, and that means that you're not earning money in other areas. Let's take a look at a few common customer cyber misgivings. And if you have a sales team, they could use these as battle cards to help them to get through the objection. So the first one, my data is not worth stealing. A lot of companies feel that they are small or insignificant, so why would a hacker be interested in them? Well, actually, they are interested, and we'll come on to this in a second. We'll look at the other 3 points while we're here as well. The one in the bottom corner here, I had a security audit last year. We're fine. So many companies believe that if they've had a scan or security scan, that they're now covered. But a security scan, what it does is it says on this day, your network was certified or was able to pass this test. But as you know, a lot of IT guys on the ground, if they know that they're going to have an audit, they will make their infrastructure secure or block up the holes that they know exist because it makes their life easy. The minute that audit is complete, they then open those holes so they can operate business as normal. So really, it's trying to help the customers to see that, well, yeah, you may think so, but actually, you know, hackers can get in and will get in if they want to. How about this one? My MSP partner has covered me, so my systems are secure. Now, this one you need to be careful with, because if you've been offering traditional MSP services and you haven't started to separate out SOC services, then your customer will assume, even though they have their contract and it tells them what they're covered, they will assume that they are still covered if they have an attack. Now, you as a business, you need to decipher whether or not you're going to start separating out the services and tell your customer, well, actually, this is out of scope. If you do have a security breach, then we will have to charge you, in addition to your normal support. You may want to do that, but it's something that you need to consider as a business. And then the last one, my business is too small for a hacker to care. Again, these type of statements, that statement there particularly is like manna to a hacker, because in fact, these small businesses are the ones that actually do end up paying the ransom so they can get their data back. So, and they don't tend to complain about it, or they don't report it to the authorities, which means that they are liable to be attacked again if it was successful the first time. So these are the type of businesses that are actually paying out the ransom that have been induced upon them because of being cryptolocked. So when we look at some of the stats that we see, now these stats are taken from the UK alone, but I imagine it would be a similar case, if not worse, for the US because of the size and the population. But in the UK, 41% of small businesses identified security breaches or attacks in the last 12 months. And that's a huge number. If you look at some of the numbers on the side here, 36% needed new measures to prevent or protect against future breaches. And that's because they never had anything in place, because they never felt that they were going to be a victim of crime or cybercrime. And now they're having to put processes in place to protect themselves from any future attacks. 31% use additional staff to deal with breaches. They had to bring people in so they can run their business if they were fortunate enough to be able to do that. A lot of businesses now operate online. So if they lose their data, they cannot trade. And that's the impact it has when they are attacked. 27% said that the breaches stopped staff carrying out day-to-day work. Well, if you haven't got access to your data, you can't work. So we can understand why that was, or how that is the case. And then just going down to the last one there, it says £894, which is about close to $1,000, was the average mean cost of all breaches identified in the last 12 months. Actually, I think that's quite a conservative figure, because I know from my experience, when I have been involved or called out because of a breach, often is the case that you find that the customer didn't really do well backups very well, so data was missing. And so when you come to recover the data, it's actually taking us 2, 3, maybe even 4 days to get them back in a working state, because we're having to go back so far to try and recover data. Because often is the case when someone does a ransomware attack, that the data has been started to be attacked days before. So by the time you go back in time, you're having to go back maybe a week to get clean data before you can actually declare them clean. And of course, the biggest avenue of attack used by hackers and the most successful is still email. So just picking on a few of these figures, in the left by the orange arrow, 67% of organizations saw increases in impersonation business email compromise attacks. So that's people pretending to be the CEO or the VP of finance, etc., and instructing accountants to pay bills or pay certain companies. Still a large proportion of businesses are seeing these type of attacks. 94% of organizations are receiving phishing attacks. Again, very easy. People will see an email unsuspecting and then will click on the email. And because a lot of hackers, what they do when they compromise a system is they will spend some time doing reconnaissance and getting to understand how the business works, the type of text and language that people use to communicate. They can very cleverly mimic certain people so that the person receiving the email believes it's a legitimate email, and then will activate the ransomware, which will then, of course, lock out all the files. So we see how dangerous email attacks can be, and the answer really is education, educating the end users so that they know how to not activate such attempts. Because if you educate the users, actually it benefits you as a business, because it means you're getting less attacks or less impact on your resource. So why are attacks on the increase? Well, let's take a look at these 5 points here. So CAAS, cybercrime as a service. This is actually a term under the dark web. You can buy pre-packaged attack bots to go and infiltrate or attack businesses. Point 2, it's much easier to get hold of cybercrime toolboxes. So you can go on the dark web, and we're going to have a look at a few sites on the dark web so you can see exactly how easy it is to get these things. Then you can then just deploy them and point them at the various domain and then launch your attack. An increase in zombie attacks. So zombie attacks is where a hacker will come in and infect machines. So he'll push out a package and then use those machines to either do a denial of service on a website or even bring the local network down by launching a denial of service. Ransomware toolkits is a given. There's an increase of those because it's successful. People end up paying. They do pay because their data is more important to them than standing their ground and being principled. And of course, war driving toolkits, that's Wi-Fi attacks while sitting in cars. Now, we don't tend to see a traditional Wi-Fi attack where someone will hack a Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi technology these days is pretty secure and is improving all the time. But what we do see from a Wi-Fi point of view is somebody going into a building or finding a network point and then plugging in a Wi-Fi so that they can sit in their car and connect to their Wi-Fi and then get infiltrated on the network. We've seen a few instances of this where actually Wi-Fi is on the edge of a building or outside to give Wi-Fi to let's say a car park or an area has been disconnected, and then an access point has been plugged in, which has then been used to infiltrate the network. So that's also on the increase. Now, all of these things that we just spoke about, the 5 points, can all be bought on the dark web. The question we have to ask ourselves is, what is the dark web? Well, in the next part of this presentation, we're going to take you on a journey. And we're going to show you how the dark web operates, and so you can get a good understanding of why it's such a threat and why it's so appealing to criminals. So what is the dark web? The dark web is an infrastructure, a network, a global web-based network, the internet, but operates on a different level to your traditional internet that we are used to. To get onto the dark web, you need to use a Tor browser, as you can see here. Now, Tor browsers are completely legal. You can download and install it, completely legitimate browser, but it's the only way that you can get on the dark web. And why you would use a Tor browser is because it's secure, it doesn't hold cookies, it doesn't track you. You can go to various websites and it will mask your IP address, which what a lot of people want. So if you want to browse a website and get a great deal for a ticket, for an airline ticket, probably not going to be flying much anywhere in a moment, you would use a Tor browser so that the airline couldn't launch cookies and then figure out that you've actually been on the site again and then increase the price like you normally would see. Now, is there a legitimate use for Tor browsers on the dark web? Yes, there is. On this slide here, you can see that Facebook have a website, a site on the dark web. Now, you can always tell a dark website because the extension at the end is a .onion address. All the addresses on the dark web end with a .onion extension. Most of the addresses are quite complex. Facebook here have used a standard one, but normally they're full of hieroglyphic characters. Now, why would Facebook want a website on the dark web? It's to allow people who are in countries where Facebook is banned to be able to still access it. Other companies do it as well. Google, YouTube, they have dark websites as well, so that their users can benefit and use their websites via using the Tor browser. Now, here's our first site. So all the sites that I'm going to show you have been, funnily enough, by the FBI. They've been closed down. So these pictures are library pictures. So Dream Market was a site where you were able to buy drugs, quality drugs, and have them shipped anywhere in the world. So if you look at the site there, you can see that you have a picture of the merchandise, so you can see what you're buying, and you can check that it's the right type of drug that you want. On the left side there, you've got the various different drugs, cannabis, ecstasy, opiates, you name it, it's all there. And these are legitimate buyers in the dark web. It's a professional business here. So you can look at the merchandise, you can pay for it in Bitcoin, which is untraceable, a little difficult to trace. And then the merchandise will be shipped to a PO box of your choice using a secure method. They also offer escrow. You can see escrow as part of the option if you wanted to make sure that you're going to get your goods. And then once it's delivered, then the escrow will complete the transaction. Here we see another Dream Market page here where you have different items that are on sale. Here you've got on the center a ransomware kit. Now you've got the vendor. The vendor has a reputation here. He's got 120 successful sales. His rating is 4.5, 1 out of 5. So this guy is a pretty reliable person. And you can buy this ransomware kit for $3. Yes, for $3 you can buy yourself a ransomware kit and make thousands and repeatedly use the kit. You can see there that at the bottom there, you even got a product description of how you can use this kit, the source code, and how easy it is to set up. That's how easy it is to buy these ransomware toolkits on the dark web. And of course, other things are also packaged up as well. Here you've got social security numbers you can buy for $1. Online payment services, that's for people who have these payment services. You can get their credentials and use them for getting access to these services. Driver's license, loyalty cards, passport. Look at that, US passport for $1,000 to $2,000. The higher the cost, the better quality it is. Diplomas for getting jobs, etc. Credit cards from $5 to $110, so you can get a CVV number for $5. You can get it with bank info for $15, and the full package, the combo, for $30. So you can see how organized these gangs are and the kind of services that are available on the dark web. Now, this final slide shows you again how organized these people are. This is Silk Road, another site that's been taken down by the FBI. But here you've got 1 gram of high quality cocaine. Now, in the bottom corner here, you've got a page from eBay. In here, you've got a nice bottle of bronze suntan lotion here. But the setup here is very similar. You can see that the buyer has a rating, you've got a price there, you've got a basket, etc. You've got your items in the left-hand corner. It is very organized and very simple for people to be able to go on and buy products and then be able to trade. So this is going on all the time. These sites get taken down all the time, but as one site gets taken down, another site springs up into action and the whole cycle starts again. And because they have a .onion address, it is very difficult for the authority to track down where these sites are. Often the only way they can get to these sites is by finding where the servers are, which are normally in some shady back room, and then they take the sites down by literally taking the servers out. But no sooner do they do that, they pop up again in another location and the process starts again. It's a cat and mouse game. So now you've seen how the dark web operates. What are the type of issues that we see that you as an MSP have to deal with? Well, first of all, you've got these 4 slides here, the 4 icons. The first one, users using the same username and password for a number of sites. So as humans, we're lazy. So we will use perhaps 4 passwords to cover all of our online activities. I know you're sitting there saying, oh, I don't do that, but we all do it. I do it. because we can only remember a certain amount of passwords, and that's why we do that. And often those passwords and username combinations can be or tend to be the work email and passwords, because we have to change our work password if you work for a decent company every 90 days. So when you change it, you then think, okay, you know what, I'm going to change my other passwords, and then I can remember my one password from work. Now, what's the issue with this? Well, it leaves the users open to credential stuffing. So what is credential stuffing? Credential stuffing is caused by attackers. They acquire username and passwords from websites, legitimate websites that you and I have been using, but we used our work credential or that 4 passwords that we shuffle between our different companies. Attackers then use account checking software to test the stolen credentials against a multitude of websites. So all they do is they'll breach one site, they'll get the credentials, your credentials may be in there, and then they'll use that credential by using AI against multiple sites. Now, there's 2 reasons why they do that. Number one, the attacker will use it to drain the account of personal information, and they'll either use that personal information for more criminal gain, or they'll package it and sell it on the dark web. Or number 2, they will package up the credentials from a company that they've breached, and then they will sell it as a package breach password set. So how common is this approach? Well, let me give an example. In 2016, O2 is a mobile phone company in the UK, a big mobile phone company in the UK. A BBC reporter published this article saying that O2 had customer data sold on the dark net. O2 were horrified, got in auditor and security companies to come and audit their systems. These auditors and these companies spent weeks going through all of their processes, their procedures, had them internally checked, etc., for breaches, and externally, and could find nothing. So O2 were puzzled as to how these users were able to, or how these accounts were able to be breached, because they were legitimate, they were breach accounts. Well, it turned out that the breach came from a gaming site called XSplit, who were breached in 2013, so 3 years earlier. So they lost around 3 million accounts. They were compromised. Now, the typical personage that used XSplit were between the ages of 16 to 20 years of age. A lot of them had O2 accounts. And of course, what happened was that the infiltrators, the threat actors, they were able to breach, get these username and passwords, and for the next 3 years, tested them against other accounts. Now, the users didn't bother changing their accounts for that time period. And then in 2016, decided to sell them as breached accounts. Now, they didn't only try O2, they used eBay, Gumtree, which is like an online selling site in the UK. All of these sites also were reported to have the same issue. And all because the end user used the same passwords for multiple sites. So we've now seen how attacks happen. We now see the cause of attacks, the weak links in attacks, which is their end user. Now you as an MSP now have to think about, how do I sell SOC to my customers? In fact, do I do this myself internally, or do I do it externally? So let's take a look at some pros and cons of both. Believe me, I've gone through both exercises, and one is obviously better than the other, but it depends on your outlook. So let's take a look at some of the hazards that you're going to encounter on this journey. So the cost to employ a cybersecurity team is high. It's such a shortage, a skill shortage globally when it comes to cybersecurity. Salary demands are high. In the UK, typically a consultant you'll be paying something like £70,000, which is around $90,000. So you're kind of looking at that kind of salary to bring someone who's got the credentials that we'll talk about shortly for you to for them to justify such a high salary. You can't just buy in the software and train your team to do it. They need to have the right mindset. Working in cybersecurity is a completely different mindset to just fixing infrastructure or applications or developers. It is understanding how a hacker will operate and being able to counterattack that. So it's almost like a military operation in terms of being able to fast forward or forward think the next move of the criminal. And that takes years to develop. You've got to have that right mindset to do it. And even if you buy off-the-shelf software, software for cybersecurity is not plug and play. You've got to configure it. There's a lot of actions that you need to take to clear out the noise, because out of the box, most solutions are very noisy and you'll be fighting false positives all day until you fine tune it. And there are a lot of communities that are now beginning to spring up with the software, the main software packages that are available, but the main ones are quite expensive. Those that are not so good or not so popular, there's, which tends to be the sort of smaller SMP or MSP that goes for, that they can be quite difficult to configure. You need to be 24/7. You can't operate your SOC like you do an MSP, where you will maybe run from 8 till 6, or maybe you have extended hours. It has to be a 24/7 operation, because attackers, they don't rest at night. In fact, nighttime is a great time to infiltrate a company, but actually daytime is as well. So you need to have that 24/7 operation. We spoke about this whole shortage of cyber experts, but at the end here, we've got not all tools are the same. There are a lot of packages out there that are claiming to be a one-stop for all. That does not exist. You need to have a multitude of tools to be able to have a decent tool set. In my team, we had something like 8 different applications that we use so that we can capture the majority of attacks. But even that wouldn't capture everything, because there were new things coming out all the time. So you have to train your system to be able to understand those attack vectors and be able to flag them up as a potential breach. Then, of course, you've got that dirty subject in the corner there, the need to buy a SIM solution to collect logs. So what a SIM is, it's a massive database that collates logs from different applications and then gives you an attack vector. Basically, it will replay the event and show you what happened. Now, what you mustn't go away with is that the SIM will show you live things. It won't show you what's happening live because it's collating the logs at the time, but you can use it to be able to understand what happened in the past, to be able to give you a full picture. Most applications, a lot of applications will flag up issues now, but they're writing that information to your SIM at the same time. Of course, the biggest issue that you have with SIM solutions is that most, and in fact, all companies, they charge by the log aggregation. So how much data is being written, and the cost is huge. It's extremely expensive. And it's the one thing that these SIM companies hold companies like yourself to ransom with. So setting up a SIM can be costly, especially if it's noisy, and out the box it's noisy. When we had ours, it was extremely noisy, and unfortunately cost us a fortune until we understood how to just get the right type of information to give us the data that we needed to be able to look at the incident and be able to clearly understand what happened. And that will take you a while. In fact, if I give you a conservative estimate, it will take you a year before you get your SIM. If you go for broke and decide to go on your own, like we did, with expert help, it took us a good year before we started to get the right information out of our SIM solution and ignore the noise. So, you know, if you got a multitude of heads working on there, you could probably do it quicker, but the multitude of heads is going to cost you a lot of money to do that. You need to have the tools and systems to pick up the threats, as we mentioned. So you need a bunch of tools. You can't just rely on one package or two packages. You need 4, 5, maybe even 6 applications that will give you different vectors so you can make an informed decision. And again, of course, it's having the right people to be able to do that. And your people need to have the correct certification and skills in order for them to be fit for purpose. It's no good a guy saying, hey, I've worked in security for 2 years or 3 years, but they haven't got a certification. It's not like standard IT where you can learn on the job. You can learn this on a job, but the learning takes a lot longer because of the intel and the understanding of the data. So getting the right people is paramount for you to getting your SOC up to speed. So that's the process that you need to go through if you do it yourself and bring it in-house. Okay, so what solution should you have if you go for an external SOC partner? Well, your external SOC partner, they should have certified engineers working in their SOC. They obviously need to be running a 24/7 shop. So they need to be operational on a 24-hour basis, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. As we mentioned before, they should use different platforms to identify threat actors. They should also be able to provide you with intelligence about your customers found on the dark web. So this is the proactive behavior that a good SOC partner should be able to do, because they should be able to extract information about your customers. If the customers are using credentials out there and they're compromised, they should be able to find it on the dark web pretty quickly and be able to alert you and say, hey, look, we found this. Your customer may be subject to attack shortly. You need to A, change passwords, B, tighten up your security, et cetera, et cetera. And that's obviously going to give you the kudos to bring that to the attention of your customer. So what can InBay offer you? Well, InBay are dedicated to developing security solutions designed for SMEs. Now, in the security arena, there are 2 players. There's the high enterprise businesses who deal with the JP Morgans, etc. These are the security shops. Most of those guys don't deal with anyone below $12 to $15 million turnover. That means that anything below that is open for you as an MSP to take advantage of. InBay also partnered with several leading vendors that search the darknet for client info, so they get that intel ahead of time and are able to then help you as a business to be able to tell your customers, hey, there's a breach, this is what we found, you need to do something about it. They support already over 30,000 devices globally on a 24/7, 365 basis, no expensive setup costs, because they have the people already, so you don't have to worry about people management or software to buy and learn. You basically bolt this on as a service to your MSP offering that you have now, and are available for you as a white label, so you can resell it. So, if you have these guys, if you have InBay monitoring your solution overnight, InBay will pick the phone up as you. And that can be a great benefit for you, which means that your guys can sleep at night, and then in the morning, InBay will be there to give you the intel on what's happened overnight if they've had an issue. More importantly, they are qualified. Their engineers are qualified security experts. And the greatest benefit of using InBay security services is that they understand you as an MSP, because InBay started life off as an MSP. So let's talk about the team in more detail and what they can bring to you. So the 2 most well-known qualifications globally are the OSCP and CREST training. Both of those are global bodies who are recognized for their security credentials. So in CREST, there are 3 or 4 different types of exams that your engineers can do. And then there's the OSCP. Now these exams are like Cisco, CCNAs and CCIEs. They are very important and well recognized in the security arena. The OSCP exam, or the Offensive Security Certified Professional, is probably one of the most intense exams I've ever seen in my whole career in IT. It's a 24-hour exam, and during that exam, you have 6 systems that have been breached that you have to understand and tell the board, because it's a board of people who mark the exam. It's not a machine. So you have to write a report, and in the report you have to show how the perpetrator was able to get into the system, what he compromised during the attack, and what remedial action will be taken or needs to be taken to prevent the attack from happening again. And you have 24 hours to do all 6 tasks and then write a report back, and then that's reviewed and marked by the board. And they're obviously experts at searching the dark web as well in Bay. All of this is there to give you the peace of mind that they have your back, that they are covering your customers, and that they've got the skilled engineers to be able to handle breaches, but also to be able to see breaches that have happened in the past. And down below, you can see some of the partners that Inbay use their solutions to help to cover. That's not all the partners. There are some that are not mentioned there, but those are the key ones there that you can research and see the offerings that they offer to give you some comfort in as to what Inbay can offer as a business. So Inbay have 2 services that they offer currently for their solution. They have what we call a standard, which is fully managed EDR. So EDR is endpoint detection response. So it's like antivirus on steroids. This type of solution basically goes and hunts for attackers on the virus and then collates any attacks and informs other devices to shut down, depending on the EDR product that you use. So Inbay's offering is a 24/7 monitoring. They also have incident notification, system malware analysis, incident response, analyze reports, scan reports of any issues. The premium service goes a little bit deeper, in fact, a lot deeper. You have your log management for all of the solutions that come in, SIM event correlation, so you can see how a perpetrator has come in, how long they've been in the system. It's a managed SOC vulnerability assessment internally. That's very important because a lot of companies will test the external devices, not the internal. So that's important. That's all part of the premium service. So both have their place. For small businesses, you might want to focus on the standard solution, but of course, if they have a sensitive customer that they deal with, like military, etc., then the premium obviously will be the one that you would go for. Whereas if you've got a medium to large business, then the premium service again has the features that provides the protection needed for a larger business to be able to control their assets. Additional services that they offer, you can see here a nice list. Vulnerability assessment externally and internally, like we spoke about. Penetration testing. Penetration testing is the traditional method of just testing ports and seeing what's open and what breaches the CVE databases. That's how penetration tests tend to go in general. But of course, Inbay will do the vulnerability assessment as well, which is really important because that's going to tell you things like perimeter checks. So, for example, when my team did vulnerability assessments, what we used to do was we used to go away and find out all the information we could about you as a business on the dark web, and then use that information to attack you. That's how we did vulnerability assessments. So essentially what it does is it allows you to be able to go and find information about that business and then see how that business or how that information could be used to formulate attack, which is really important for your clients as well. And then the rest are pretty straightforward. So mobile application testing, if it's applicable, if a company has a website and what company doesn't, and it's the selling things on a website, then the web application vulnerability assessment and testing will be applicable as well. Deep learning for network traffic analysts, that's where software that's on the network, what it does is it looks at the behavior of how the network operates. And when there's a change, so for example, if there is a device that's talking externally to something and it's sending lots of data, that's an anomaly that the deep learning analyst will hunt and shut down. So that kind of technology, banks are using it as well. So for abnormal transaction on the credit cards, etc., it's a similar kind of technology that is used for that. And then finally, deception technology. That's where someone will try to interpret or impersonate somebody else in the business. So a lot to take in. And as you can imagine, it's a bit of an eye-opener when you really look at the big picture, that offering SOC services is a little bit more than just offering additional services to your vendors. It is about offering a complete protection solution, and that's something that InBay can help you with, and again, white label that